One of the two Torahs facing you in our Holy Ark is known as the Czech Torah. It's a special Torah. In fact, it's the one with the blue cover, that cover given in memory of Margot and Adam Fogelman's mom, Linda Halter Cohen. The Torah itself is what I want to explain to you about. It came from a village where a few Jews survived the evil Nazis who confiscated hundreds of Torah scrolls for a planned museum of the extinct Jew in Prague. Our Holocaust Torah is one of approximately 900 plus others stolen from synagogues wherein many Jews were burned alive. 68 years later, after 6 million Jews were murdered, the 12 million of us still left on earth commemorate the Holocaust each year on the 27th day of Nisan. It was yesterday. We call it Yom HaShoah. In Israel, it's known as Yom HaZikaron LaShoah VeLaGvura, Remembrance Day of the Holocaust and the heroism of our people who perished in Nazi Europe. Yom HaShoah, in case you didn't know, wasn't even established as a national day of mourning until 1959, since most who founded the state of Israel, or a good percentage, were survivors. Yesterday in Israel, and on every Yom HaShoah, at exactly 10 o'clock in the morning, I know from living there, sirens sound for 2 minutes throughout the country. Public transport, including all highway vehicles, come to a standstill. People stop and stand silent. Public entertainment and many public establishments are closed by law. Israeli television and radio channels transmit songs and documentaries about the Holocaust with no commercials. All flags on public buildings are flown at half-mast. On this Shabbat Eve, the day after Yom HaShoah, I will be reading the names of the relatives of temple members who perished in the Shoah. But like most of you, not all of you, like most of you, I do not have immediate relatives who were murdered in the Shoah. Also, like most of you, my great-grandparents came from Eastern Europe, Poland or Russia, depending on the day, Romania, Poland, where most of the 6 million who perished once lived. But let's face it, we are so far removed from the world of Fiddler on the Roof, rural shtetls, and an Orthodox Hasidic lifestyle for most of us. One of the many incredible facets of Temple Israel member and Holocaust survivor Max Nodowitz's life, and he's here, is how an East European Orthodox Jewish kid like Max, who went to an Orthodox Jewish day school in the sticks, speaking Yiddish, not only miraculously survived the Shoah, but after immigrating to America, it's rather amazing that Max learned English, graduated Vanderbilt, earned a fine reputation in the insurance world. He's still being honored with lifetime achievement awards in his profession. What's my point? It wasn't just Max and our other members' harrowing escape from the horror of the Holocaust that was miraculous. Almost as miraculous was Max and our other members' recovery, transition, and adaptation to this world in America after their survival. So how do we teach those of us with no immediate connection to our peasant, pre-Enlightenment, frum forebears? How do we impart to the next generation of Jews? How will tonight's co-service leaders, Danny and Jeremy, instill in their children someday a connection to the courage, the heroism, the beauty of our ancestors, and not only the despicable wickedness of the Nazis. Another Temple High School student, wasn't Danny or Jeremy, confessed that she's tired of all these Holocaust movies. Why? Because, she answered, I know how barbaric the Nazis were, and I know that they murdered millions of Jews, including 3 million from Poland, where my family came from. But Rabbi, it's just hard to see myself in those movies. It's hard to see myself at programs where all these prayers are chanted and vented. I appreciated her comment because it's hard for many of us to see ourselves in those black and white films of pre-modern Jews lined up to be executed. I don't want that Temple High School girl to focus on the gruesome way Jews died at the hands of the revolting Nazi death brigade. No, I want that young woman and Danny and Jeremy, my own children, frankly myself, all of us, to remember how these Jews lived, not how they died. These mothers, fathers, daughters, and sons who lived within many of our own lifetimes. When you know a Max Notowitz who lived in that world, you can relate. But most of us live in a different world, a world filled with music, indoor plumbing, pharmacies, weddings, and bar mitzvahs. I'll tell you why I said that. Our brilliant pre-confirmation class teacher, that's 9th grade, Lee Mansberg, took her class to a movie that she realized established a connection between those kids and the family they were seeing. Woman in Gold. Maria Altman, an Asian Austrian woman living in Los Angeles, discovers after her sister died in LA in the 90s, letters hinting that the Mona Lisa of Austria, the famed Lady in Gold painting by the renowned Austrian artist Gustav Klimt, was perhaps willed to her and her sister before the Nazis stole the crown jewel of her Jewish family. You see, it's not just any lady in gold in this masterpiece. It's this woman, Maria's beloved Aunt Adele, who virtually raised her, and the sister who died. And against all odds, Maria and the American grandson of another famous Jewish Austrian composer, Arnold Schoenberg, named Randy Schoenberg, they team up to take on the Austrian government. It's a legal showdown. It's like a John Grisham movie, that bounces back and forth between Vienna and America, including a dramatic scene chapter involving the United States Supreme Court. The reason the movie was the best Yom HaShoah remembrance of the week and a must-see for American Jews 50 and under, that's an arbitrary number, is because Woman in Gold is set against the historical backdrop and family relationships we modern, acculturated American Jews can relate to. We may not be as aristocratic or wealthy as this particular family, but we can relate to their living room couch, their indoor plumbing, their neighborhood with a pharmacy. The central character, Maria, has a relationship with her mom and dad reminiscent not only of any of our families, but of modern Jewish families. Her wedding in Vienna doesn't look like one of those beautiful, traditional, but unrelatable Hasidic weddings of yesteryear in Fiddler on the Roof, it looks more like a wedding reception at the Peabody or the Edelson Wax Hall, almost touching this Danziger Chapel. Our kids and we know about the Jews being shipped to concentration camps. But beyond the atrocities, the complicity of the Christian neighbors who humiliated Maria's Jewish family friends and participated in turning Jews into the Nazis is something for our Christian friends, and their consciences are addressing this horror in the heart of Christendom, since they were the bystanders and perpetrators, not Maria and other Jewish victims. As disturbing to me as the barbaric Nazis are in these films, in this show, a movie, the neighbors who watched with glee as Jews were publicly humiliated was equally hard to take. Those scenes reminded me that from a moral point of view, there may be no such thing as a bystander, because if one is present, one is taking part. Beyond the inhumanity and cruelty of others, which has nothing to do with Judaism, Maria's close family is the relatable link to Jews in our time and place. We may not be at the center of Viennese culture, but everyone wants Grizz playoff tickets. Everyone here knows about Memphis in May, or the wonderful lakes in the summer, or the beach. At least the vast majority of Memphians who are living modern Jewish lives. Maria's family was a loving, affectionate, talented, artistic, musical clan, just like the dynamic duo leading services with me tonight. For those who arrived late, they're too humble to talk about it. But this Broadway star of Annie has found her Jewish voice, and Jeremy is one of the finest classical guitarists his age in the country, with scholarships awaiting him at multiple universities. When they see Maria's family, you can relate to the music. Throughout Women in Gold, it's not Hitler's arrival in the country or memories of the Nazis. Older Jews remember, and traditionalists curse in prayers, Yamach Shemam, that are instructive or life-giving. That's not what speaks. It's the emotional family flashbacks to this woman's story and her courage, recovery, and resolve to go on. The final conversation Maria has with her mom and dad is not Hollywood. It happened to every survivor who was ripped away from her or his mom and dad. Knowing it would be their last moment together before Maria tries to escape at her parents' urging, what her father says to her is what any Jewish American, modern Jewish father or mother would say to his or her daughter or son. He said, "Our family means everything. We worked hard. We contributed to society. We belonged. I'm proud of what we have done, Maria, and I'm so proud of you." And then he adds, "As you go, I ask you only one thing. Remember us." To which her mother adds, "Let us live in you wherever you go, and let yourself find happiness again." And they hug and they cry, and she never sees them again. So while this movie is about pursuing a painting, and this theme of justice underpins the film, the heart of it is one's relationship to the past through the lens of a Reform Jewish family as assimilated and caring and loving and Jewish as most American and Memphis Jewish families are today. Movies based on the Holocaust can sometimes feel anachronistic. They're all important, and some might be even interesting and engrossing, but not necessarily relevant to the world we live in today. This movie is relevant especially when violent global anti-Semitism is again on the rise. And if you haven't read David Brooks's column in the New York Times on this very subject of global anti-Semitism, how President Hassan Rouhani of Iran just reinstated a conference of Holocaust deniers and anti-Semitic conspiracy theorists, that two of Iran's prominent former nuclear negotiators attended it, the top military staff of Egypt attended a lecture on the protocols of the Elders of Zion. The Muslim world in the Middle East is still rife with the usual conspiracy theories that the Jews were behind 9/11, drink the blood of non-Jews. This sort of anti-Semitism, we all know, thrives where there aren't many Jews, he says. But there's a different form of anti-Semitism on the continent where Woman of Gold takes place. And it requires a different response. The response to a Jewish school principal having to watch a Frenchman of Algerian descent pinning his 8-year-old daughter down in the schoolyard and executing her. French kids who right now are terrified in school because of the dirty Jew and I want to kill all of you chants in the hallway. And a Danish imam who urged worshipers next to Austria in Berlin, in a Berlin mosque, to kill the Jews, count them and kill them to the very last one. And you may have heard that thousands of Jews are fleeing Europe like Maria did. David Brooks suggests that leaving Europe isn't the answer. Instead, he says European governments can demonstrate solidarity by providing security and cracking down on even the smallest assaults, while brave and decent people can take a page from Gandhi and stage marches, sit-ins, and protests in the very neighborhoods where anti-Semitism breeds. This best line of all: expose the evil of the perpetrators, then disturb the consciences of the good people in these communities who tolerate them. Before I close, in Maria, played by the incomparable Helen Mirren, we meet a Western-educated Jewish daughter who loved her family and tried to survive even when her family no longer could. And the ability of the members of our congregation I'm about to read and all survivors to go on mirrors the girl in this movie. There's even a line that Helen Mirren, I read, added to the script. When the young lawyer, Randy, asks her why she's doing this, pursuing the painting, getting her Aunt Adele back to be reunited with her, she adds this line that wasn't in the original script. Because people forget, you know, especially the young. And it's true, she added in the interview. We're losing the generation of people who had firsthand experience of the Holocaust. I think the pain and trauma of it was so profound, they couldn't speak about it for a long time, and it's only toward the end of their lives they began to articulate what had happened to them, to remember it and live it again. So while it's hard to feel that you were present unless you were alive back then, this secular yet unabashedly Jewish family mirrors the families in our time, even if our ancestors, like mine, came from Eastern Europe. How do I know, by the way, that Lee Mansberg's 9th grade class connected to this movie in ways no other Yom HaShoah program or movie does? Turns out that when Maria successfully won back the portrait of her aunt, it's not a spoiler alert, it's old news. It went to a gallery in New York opposite the Metropolitan, the New Gallery. And knowing that this 9th grade class, knowing that they would be in confirmation next year, they asked me, their confirmation teacher, through Lee Mansberg, if it would be possible on next year's confirmation class to New York to reunite with the woman in gold. and to see Maria's Aunt Adele face to face. The kids asked that. I told Lee to tell the students that they can count on that happening when we go there this fall. The Shoah was the attempt to strip the humanity and names of victims and turn them into numbers and ashes. May we do more than remember tonight. May we resurrect their lives through our own Jewish lives, however we're able to carry on the life of our people in our modern time and place. And let us say, Amen.